Let's distinguish between being hurt and being injured. Because if I'm hurt, I can alter the way that I train and continue to train. If I'm injured, I'm going to hurt myself more by continuing to train. That is the difference. Welcome back. I'm so glad you are continuing your jiu-jitsu journey. We've got a question today that sadly, at some point, we got to ask. How should I respond to being injured? Number one, be smart and heal up. So again, we said that sometimes with those little hurts, you can kind of train through them. Injury is not like that. Injury, if you try to train through, is just going to hurt you worse and prolong you getting back to 100%. So we need to be smart and we need to heal up. Number two, I'm going to encourage you to keep going to class, because number one is be smart and heal up. That means you don't need to train. You don't need to be out on the mat rolling, maybe not even drilling, okay? But what can you do? I want to encourage you, number two, be in class, even if you're sitting in the chair off the mats with your arm in a sling, watching coach go through the techniques. It was still so important for me to be in class. So the old white belt principle, go to class, that applies when you're injured. Do not say, well, I'm injured, so what's the point? There's a point. You need to go to class. Stay connected, and you'll still learn. And there's still a process involved. And in some ways, I would argue, it's a different way of learning. And actually, it might surprise you from the outside looking in, just the mental part of it and the ways in which you can learn by sitting and watching. The third thing you need to consider when injured is you need to be willing to learn from it. And here's what I mean. In the case of my first injury, it happened because the truth is I kind of came into class, I was feeling a little lazy. And remember, we've talked about how jiu-jitsu is something that will drive the lazy out. Well, sadly, my opponent did a great sweep on me because I was kind of being a little lethargic, drilled my shoulder on the mat, messed me up, right? And so if I'm going to learn from that, I've got to be willing to say that, hey, this is not an activity that I can just kind of haphazardly be out there doing. This is something that I have to be fully engaged in. One of the comments you guys gave on the slap and bump is that when I slap and bump, I'm basically saying I'm ready and it's on. I think one of you commented like and that's true. And I think in that scenario, I had forgotten that it's on. This person is coming to me 100% right now. And so I had to learn from that. From then on, it's like, okay, if I'm out of it, maybe I just need to sit out and watch today. Or I better get it into gear and get ready to roll. My second injury happened because I was almost 40 years old at the time. I walked into the gym. I did no warm-up, and I went with a much younger, much stronger opponent, and I tried to go 1,000 miles an hour from the jump start. You know what? It cost me. It cost me a surgery and about 3 months off of jiu-jitsu. And the mistake I made was I'm not 25 anymore. I realized that if I'm going to go in there and I'm going to train, I have to be willing to warm up. Because the reality is a lot of injuries can be prevented. I feel like both of those absolutely could have been prevented, and that's on me. So I have to learn from that. So here's the lesson. Ever since I've got injured, that's about 2 years ago, I have a whole new routine now that I do with bands and a little warm-up solo movements that I do because I'm 44 years old. And I realize, you know what, I still want to roll hard, and I can do that. And hey, accidents happen, and I can still get injured for sure. But I can decrease my chances by taking the steps to warm up properly because I'm an older athlete. I'm going to have to do that, and that's part of it. So that's the three things you need to think about when you're injured. Do not get discouraged. It can happen, although I think a lot of times it can be avoided. So that's why I'm saying learn from it, and you can learn from me in those two scenarios. So number one, be smart, heal up. Number two, keep going to class. Number three, learn from it so that you can avoid those in the future. Well, if you're enjoying the content, I want to encourage you to subscribe right here. You can click this. I'm going to keep content coming because I want to help all of us continue our journey, this incredible art of jiu-jitsu. It is a magnificent journey, and I think this was a great question. We will keep the content coming. Until next time, train on.